Well, I ask all my children just to be on stage with me today because this is my gift. My gift is just to get to be in their presence, and I've always said that it's a dream come true that all of my children have chosen to follow the Lord, but it's heaven on earth that they want to work with us. And so thank y'all in advance for being up here and just being with me on this special day. And we're going to talk about a couple of Father's Day that stands Father Days.
Father's Days.
Father's Days.
Plural of Father's
Thank
Days.
you, son. Father's Days. Father Days.
What?
A couple of Father's Days that stand out to me. And so, but before we do that, we have something that we want to just give to.
Yeah, can we ask all the dads to stand
all
really
the
quick
dads.
so we
Dads,
can honor
would you
you?
stand up, all the fathers? Josh, this is just a little gift we have for you men. It says warrior on it. And while you will not be able to take this through security, feel free to bring it to our church. Anyway, it's just a little token of our love and just something you can always have in your pocket in case of an emergency. And you need to cut twine or fish line or
Twine.
something. It'll work at least once for that. But seriously, I just wanted to honor you today with just a little token of our love. And thanks for being great dads. And if you're standing and they miss you, we have some available, but just we'll have them available for you as long as we have them. But it's just one per father. And if you have a father or somebody that you'd like to get one for, we have these also available in the bookstore. But it's not like, hey, I'll take a couple of those. Just take one, and that'll be awesome. So anyway, happy Father's Day. I hope you enjoy your little gift. Thank you so much. And Josh, when we think about Father's Day, I think about 2004. Well, first of all, when I think about Father's Day, I thanked your mother for helping to make me a father this morning. And it was a lot of fun. Thank you, Sheila. And so I just honored her this morning. But I want to thank you guys too, because you have made me. Why are you laughing, Josh?
I thanked your mom this morning for making me a father. It was a lot of fun. That's like...
It is just
your kids should be in kids' church.
Raising you guys has been one of the funnest
I'm
things.
used to this. This isn't even surprising.
It's been one of the funnest things in my life.
Beautiful.
And so, so there's a lot of things that have happened on Father's Day through the years.
Yeah, we're glad you're alive, I think, first of all.
Yeah, well, thank you, son.
Father's Day 2019.
I appreciate that.
Father's Day 2019 was a big one for our family. It was a big kind of tragedy Father's Day, but also a miracle Father's Day. I think that was special. 2004, we opened this building.
Yeah, 2004, we didn't open this building, but our first phase, which is now our school and a lot of work.
And, in culture, I feel like it's different. In culture, we don't really celebrate Father's Day. I saw something recently. I don't know how true it is. Right, Father's Day is the 20th most celebrated holiday in America. Mother's Day is number 2.
Yeah.
And we tend to...
So Halloween is more celebrated than Father's Day.
I can't even name 20 holidays. I mean,
I can't.
So Christmas is obviously number 1. But a lot of times in church and in the world, like dads kind of get beat up on, and there's a lot of different conversations. But here at Elevate Life, we've always celebrated men. We've celebrated strong men, being biblical men. We've celebrated dads here.
Yeah.
We think dads are important.
Yeah.
And I think because especially now in my 30s, it's like I've recognized and the older I get, it's like the more I recognize the important role that you've played in that.
Yeah.
And special things have happened a lot in our family and in our church on Father's Day. Like in 2019, we got this picture. I think they have it of you. Yeah, my mom sent us this picture on Friday night of Father's Day weekend in 2019 and said, hey, pray for your dad. He's in the hospital. And so he was kind of giving us that Papa Gorilla hand, I love you thing there. And so that was the picture that we got. We tried to call my mom. She's like, oh, it's fine. He just had some chest pain. We're just here in the hospital getting it all checked out. Meanwhile, this next picture was the next picture she sent. So he was thinking in his mind, this is what it feels like to die in that moment. And then the third picture was really the next picture that we got, which was after Pastor Keith had been in the hospital for a little bit. They came in, they looked at the EKG machine, ran out of the room, grabbed his gurney, and just ran him down the corridor of the hospital for emergency surgery. And so Father's Day 2019, we're all on a text thread trying to figure out what's going on. And, you know, Pastor Sheila, like, how did you say it? She always believes the best. Or like Dad's a faith person.
Oh, she has a lot of peace.
She just has peace as a person. She's like, we're good. They said it's a massive heart attack. They're putting a stent in. Whatever. We're like, is he awake? Can he talk?
We're all trying how to figure out to get there as fast as we can.
She's like, you don't need to come.
He's gonna be fine.
And so
they're on the phone crying.
They're rushing me down.
They're running down the hallway of the
and she goes,
hospital.
hey, I just need to take a picture for my kids. It's like, go, baby. It's like, the doctor's cool. We got to go right now. He's got 100% blockage. Okay, let me just get a quick picture.
So,
oh shoot, I had it on video. Hold on.
oh man. So Father's Day of 2019 was significant. So we drive down to Florida, or me and Courtney were in Miami. We were at a conference, and then Keelan and Whitney were here, and my dad had the heart attack in Destin, and so they're flying there. We're driving from Miami because it's a 6-hour drive, and so the whole time we're driving, I'm thinking in my mind, there's not things I regret. There's not like things I regret that I never said. There's not things that I don't think we didn't say I love you enough, but in my mind it was like, I don't think that there's anyone that will ever be alive that'll love me the way my dad loves me, or believe the best in me like my dad believes in me. Like once that physical relationship is severed, we're all gonna die someday. The three of us kind of believe we're all gonna get raptured before my dad dies.
That's right.
But either way, if that relationship and when that relationship ever gets severed, I would just lose this person who's like the person who's believed in me the most in my life. So when we went to the hospital, I remember walking into the room with him, and I'm usually not a person who's overcome with emotion very frequently. And so I walked into the room and I like fell to my knees. I'm like overcome with emotion. I'm like crying because my dad, this is the first time I've talked to him, really the first time I've seen him. And my mom's like, no, everything's fine. It's like, how could everything be fine? We're in the ICU. He had an emergency heart surgery. Like you're thinking all these thoughts. So when I saw that he was fine, I just started crying. And my dad looked at me. This is like a very significant Father's Day moment for me. Looked at me while I was weeping on the floor and just said, you know, son, this is just my heaven on earth right now. And I said, great, because it's my hell on earth.
But it was very special. That was Josh.
Yeah, that's me after I cried.
I'm sorry
for
y'all
a
have
bit.
to see me in this condition.
But the miracle.
Good news is it's not padding. It's all real.
It's not padding. Yeah, it's not.
Thank you, Keela.
So the miracle for us on that Father's Day was that my dad had the heart attack on Friday. On Sunday morning, he woke up and the doctor said, I've seen 2 miracles in my life. Some of you know the story, some of you don't. I've seen 2 miracles in my life. One was you walking in here with 100% blockage. Number 2 is we're just going to check you out straight from the ICU today because you have no long-term damage. And so we got to celebrate Father's Day together in 2019.
Yeah, so I think the next picture shows us breaking out, maybe. No, that was right before I broke out. Yeah, they got there, and I said, man, let's get out of here, man. And they took those IVs, I just have to say this, they took those IVs out of both of my arms, and they were like fish hooks. They were
graphic.
Twisted up in my arm. And when they took them out, it's like, man, I never want to feel that again. It was awful.
Anyway.
The worst part about the heart attack was the IVs. It's like, what in the world? They took them both out. They looked like fish.
Yeah, we got
hooks.
it. We got it.
This is not normal.
So then, we have some pictures, I think, from when we opened phase 1 of the building. There's a picture of me. I don't know why that got included. That's me and Pastor Keith. Oh my goodness. Look at Josh, who's so innocent. That was my original hair. This is my new hair. You can see Pastor Keith's original hair in this picture as well. He has had new hair. We've both taken that journey
Fathers,
together.
I just want to tell you, you can fix anything. You can fix anything.
This is the opening of phase 1 of our building in 2004. And then this was our first service in the new building, what that looked like. That sanctuary doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
It was fun while it lasted.
Awesome.
So it's
just
Father's Day, just a special thing
very,
for us.
very special day. And so again, I just want to thank. Oh, yeah. This was my favorite picture because after they all stayed with me for a whole week, and so show that next picture. But this is all of
The
us,
picture of us all in the, yeah.
of all of us in the bed. It was like I was thinking in my mind, like, can this bed hold all of us? I mean, Josh was right in the middle, and I was concerned, but I thought we're gonna all end up like this, man. You were just laying there. You never lay still. You move around like the whole bed was like.
Like it was just going to cave in at any moment.
That's what I was feeling.
Probably. That's probably how Courtney feels.
Yeah.
I don't know what's relevant about that, but thank you for pointing that out. It's special to me.
Josh.
Were you going to say, talk about, I mean, do you just want to talk about my weight, or is that?
Hey, here's what's so funny, and some of y'all can't appreciate this. But
Josh is just so big. Just so big. He's like a plant that just envelops everything with his gravity.
I'm on this major lean down thing right now. So I sent them a picture this morning, or was it this morning or last night? I'm at 237, and Josh is at.
I'm finding all the weight you're losing. It's great.
What are you at right now?
I'm at like 270. I'm doing okay. I said it last week. I don't know if I'm getting in better shape. I'm changing my shape.
Also, can I just say that you sent us your weight in the morning and then at night, and from the morning to the night, you lost 6 pounds, which I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah, it's pretty
But I'm happy
crazy.
for you.
Yeah.
It's good.
So one of the things that I think that we wanted to talk about, today's a very special day. Fathers are very important. It's also a special time in our family and in our church. But we want to talk about the role that a father plays that's not better than what the role that a mother plays. But you wrote this book called Dear Parent 31 years ago. And it's going to come out this year. We're working on it. And he wrote this book about his parenting philosophy and waited until we were all adults to see if his parenting philosophy worked. I think, mostly on average, like I think I've come along personally. I think the girls have been better, but we're down the road. And
Josh, let me just say one
eventually
quick thing about the book, because it will be released this year finally. And when I pushed the contract back to Doubleday Books. I was about to do a book deal with them. And I said, you know what? I'm not supposed to do this right now. I said, I've got to wait till my kids are grown, and then I want them to write on each chapter of it, because my perspective in writing this book, it's called Dear Parent, What Every Child Wished Their Parents Knew. And so part of me raising my children was to try to see from them, from their perspective, the kind of father that they needed me to be. And then adapt whatever I thought fatherhood was, seeing it through their eyes. And so when I wrote the book, that's what I was thinking. So every chapter starts with Dear Parent.
Yeah, and you wrote it at 32, and so we've now written our part, and we're just getting that ready to be published. But he lists some statistics in the book that I want to read to you, and then I want to read you an excerpt from the book that'll kind of set the tone for where we are today. So almost 1/3 of children in the United States live without a father in their home.
And by the way, that hasn't changed. So we're talking about like 1992. That hasn't changed. That statistic has grown. And here's how, when we think about how great America is, and I love America, but America leads the world in single parenting. And that should not be so. That should not be so. So in the most industrialized, arguably successful country in the world, there are more single parent homes than any other country in the world. Now, why is that important? Because now start the statistics.
Yeah, 63% of youth suicides come from fatherless homes. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. 85% of children who show behavior disorders come from fatherless homes. 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. 71% of pregnant teenagers lack a father. 85% of young people in prison grew up in a fatherless home. Fatherless boys and girls are twice as likely to drop out of high school, twice as likely to end up in jail, 4 times more likely to need help for emotional behavioral problems. But then the good news is that children raised by a single father have the same advantages as children raised by both parents.
Okay, now I want to pause right there, and I want you to really hear that. This is a rare thing, but I came across this, and this lady's very awkward, but nonetheless, she's an expert. Experts doesn't equate to lack of awkwardness, but I wanted you to watch what she's trying to say here and get the gist of it. Watch this.
The more opportunities a child has to interact with biological father, the less likely they are to commit a crime or have contact with the juvenile justice system. Okay, another way to say that is men and women who are incarcerated, the population of the prisons mostly encompass fatherless homes. Now, here's something that no one else has mentioned, which I think is cool, and I don't really say this eloquently. If a man and wife raise a child, they're less likely to end up in jail, but they have the same statistical chance as children raised by just their father. So if we want to keep children, adults, out of prison, mother, father, or just father. Well, we don't want to hear just father, so let's try to keep the families intact.
So let me paint the picture of why that's significant, and Pastor Keith actually wrote about this in his book. But before I say that, there was a speech that Barack Obama gave in a church, and a lot of people wouldn't remember this speech, but it's a speech that he gave where he talked about fathers in communities. And the number one problem that faces culture today is a lack of fathers. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. That doesn't diminish the role of a mother. But one of the things Barack Obama said in his speech, which I agree with, was he said, fatherhood doesn't happen because you conceive a child. Fatherhood happens because you have the courage to raise a child. And that's what being a father is. So if you're a stepfather in this room, if you're an adopted father, you're a father because the hard part's not the conception. That's the fun part. The hard part is the raising of the child. And so here's what Pastor Keith said in his book 31 years ago that I think is really relevant to today. He said, ask yourself this question: what's a good father? A good father is someone who assumes a role greater than himself by taking responsibility for being the best he can be for the benefit of another, his child. In Proverbs 29, the Bible tells us that without vision, people perish. What these statistics show is that a father is the chief visionary for his family and his children. Your chief responsibility is to have a great vision for your life. If you have a great vision for your life, you will have a great vision for your family. If you have a great vision for your family, you will have a great vision for your children. The vision you have or don't have for your children will ultimately determine one of the most important things about them, their identity. A good father is a man who takes responsibility to help his children discover, develop, and deploy their God-given identity and purpose. The role of your children's mother is to create a nurturing environment where your children can be developed. Your role is to develop them. Without development, nurturing turns into over-nurturing, which creates insecure and dependent adults. Without nurturing, development becomes over-coaching, where your children will base their value in life solely on their performance. So I can't wait for that book to come out. It's gonna be really great, and he wrote it 31 years ago. But the complementary roles that he talks about in the book that mothers and fathers play is a mother's responsibility is to, he has a note to mothers as well where he says, you're the only one that has a womb. You're the only one that can create a nurturing environment for your children. But without coaching, without development, you just over-nurture to where you create a dependent adult. But then a lot of times there's fathers that will raise their kids and they'll just over-coach them. And there's no nurturing that takes place. And all of this happens in the context of relationships. But the reason why we wanted to spend some time talking about this today as a family is because when you look at, a lot of people can be topical and they can say, okay, how are we gonna address Pride Month? How are we gonna address LGBT issues? How are we gonna address gender dysphoria? How are we gonna address social justice? How are we gonna address prison reform? How are you gonna address politics? All these different things. If there are great fathers that help people discover and develop and deploy ultimately their identity, these issues don't exist. These issues don't take place. the confusion that we see in culture, the Bible actually talks about two different fathers. One is God. God is the Father. The first relationship that is presented to us as it relates to God is God as a father. But then Jesus in John chapter 8 says the devil's a father. So Jesus is talking to people and he says, you're children of your father, the devil, who's the author of confusion. He's the father of lies. So what are people living right now, right? They're living in confusion. A lot of people that we see that are my age or younger, they're confused. They're confused about their identity. They're confused about the role they're supposed to play in life because there's one third of children that are growing up in the United States don't have a father. So how can they have an identity?
So one of the things that I want to say to every father is you are the one that gives your child identity. The mom's not going to do that. If she has to, because the father's not there, she can help with that. But a father for both a male child and a female child is the one that gives them their identity. The reason there's so much confusion in our world today is because of the lack of fathering. Not just the lack of fathers, but the lack of fathering. So children are left to themselves to listen to other voices. Who was it that made up different genders? Who made up, where now it's not just male and female, but now it's cis and whatever, and it's this and that, and the gender you're assigned at birth. No, you were assigned your gender way before birth. Like God caused you to be developed, and you have particular chromosomes that make you either male or female. What happens from the time a child is birthed? Their identity, when it comes into question, there is no father. There is no father who is taking responsibility. Your number one responsibility is to give your child identity. The Bible says that God made us in his own image. My self-image ultimately is a reflection of Father God. I am to image God in my life, to know God the Father in my life, and to image God in my life so that my life can have results that are God-like. But I've got to know who I am. And so I've always taken that role very seriously.
And I think before you read that, the thing that I've seen a lot, like I see people my age and they still need that from their dad. Like a lot of us in this room, we're still trying to live up to something that our dad felt like we should live up to. We're trying to prove ourselves in some way. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you might be sitting in here and you might have adult children. You might be like, man, I get all that, but I don't have little kids. I kind of missed it or whatever. God put you in your kid's life as the father. And you never get out of that role, really. And so the Bible says that God will restore years that the locust has eaten. And what that means is that God can restore that relationship, and God wants to. I sit in rooms with men all the time that just wish that their dad would say, I love you. And these are grown men. These are multimillionaires. These are people that seem to be very successful in life, and they're still talking about this severed relationship with their earthly father. And so if you're in this room and you're like, man, I feel like I missed it, that's really a lie of the enemy in your own life, because once you step into that role, then we really do believe as a church that God can restore that you can choose to start being that right now, and the past is no excuse to not step into speaking into the identity of your kids. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it might be a challenge, but hey, there's worse things to be challenged by. As long as you're alive, your kids need you to be a father. As long as you're alive, your kids need you to speak their identity into them, even if they're lost and confused and whatever, because that's what God ordained and that's what God put in place. And this isn't about perfection. This is about just doing two things. This is what Pastor Keith always talks to us about, right? That it's about giving God something to work with. Just give God something to work with. And number two, start giving people something to respect. And I want to encourage you with that. If you're in this room hearing what we're talking about, going, well, this is really great if you have little kids. No, if you're a father in this room, if you're a parent in this room, you still have this responsibility, and the responsibility will go away from your life once you die. But until you're dead, the responsibility is still yours to do this.
Be a father. Be a father. Be a father. Okay, so This last week, I just wanted to share something personal with you that I was Josh and I obviously were talking about the week, and we talk every day. But I said, when it comes to identity, for real, I wanted to name you Keith. And Mommy, that's what I call Pastor Precious to them, Mommy didn't want you to have to be a junior. So I got that. So my second choice was Joshua, who I saw as one of the greatest leaders of all time and was an archetype of Christ. And so my thought was, I didn't just want to name Josh, but I want you to see what I was doing and still am doing today, bringing him back to why I named him what I named him. Like I named you Josh because to me, he is the apex of leadership in the Old Testament. He is an archetype of Jesus himself. And I said, so when you got old enough and you asked me, why didn't you name me Keith as a first name? He asked me that. Like, why didn't you name me Keith? That did two things for me as a father. First, it made me proud that you not only wanted to carry our last name, but you wanted my name. It also showed me early that you had a spirit of honor. And now the world gets to see, much like Jesus, is that you defer and you honor me when someone honors you. I never ask you to do that. You just think, be, and do us. Now, what if I wasn't the father that had given some kind of followable excellence? What if I was inconsistent? What if I had been abusive? On and on I could go. What if because of my career or my life, I just made life about me, about my job and about my lust, etc.? And then I shared something personal with him, and I'm going to share it with you as the spiritual father of this house. I said, I cannot tell you how many women that I've said no to, son, that knew I was married and still wanted to have sex with me, that knew I was married and still was very forward with me. And I said, my flesh wanted to. Throughout the years, through my 20s, through my 30s, I traveled 40 plus weeks a year. Many of you are in sales, many of you are on the road. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And your flesh goes, well, man, this is the moment. This is real. I said, if I had not been led by the Spirit, I would have had more affairs, son, than you could ever imagine. Like Solomon, with multiple children, with multiple women. We see this a lot in our world today because people are living for themselves. They're not thinking about the impact of their choice on their children. So I said, I would have still made money, and I would have made a lot of money because of the gifts that I have and because of the gifts that God has given me. But life would be all about me, and I would not have your love. I would not have your respect. And this is the biggest deal. I would have crushed your spirit by my bad decisions. That's what some fathers don't realize. You think you're just making a decision to sleep with somebody. You think you're just making a decision to play around. You think you're just making a decision when you're making your life about you and you're uprooting your whole family and you're chasing money and you get a $20,000 raise and you think, oh, we'll do better in Chicago than we're doing in Frisco. And some men have no spiritual regard for their children. They're just chasing the money. They're making their life and their career about them. I said, considering the above scenarios, one, me being led by the Spirit, wanting to please God, and though still very imperfect, but I was quick to repent and I wanted to get it right. But the other scenario of the aforementioned, the nightmare that I would have created for our family, if I was living that life, chasing my dreams, not concerned about my family, sleeping around with whoever I felt like I had a connection with. If I was doing that and my son didn't respect me, I said, and you came to me and you said, I don't want to be called Joshua anymore. My name is Jolene. What if you came to me because of my lack of awareness of the greatest privilege that God gives a man, and that is to be a father? It's the greatest privilege any man could ever have. Not to make $1 million, not to live your dreams, the greatest privilege for every man is to be a father, because that is when every man has an opportunity to be the most like God. And when you came to me, you said, I'm LBGBQ or blah, 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 or I identify as a her and a not him. And in fact, I'm a they or a them. I don't even know who I am. I said, in the one ungodly father scenario, I would have zero authority to not only speak into your life, but to help you process your confusion. In the other scenario, that gender dysphoria never is even allowed to enter into your spirit, soul, or body. At the root of all this rainbow flag waving, confused identity, this is my text to him, and at a minimum, a homosexual spirit that has been released on our country, is a lack of godly fathers' influence. And then I ask him this question: why would a boy not want to be like his father? Why wouldn't every child not want to be like his father? I said, that is the question. I said, that's my leadershipology. You win in life if you do two things: give God something to work with, give people something to respect. Your children will pick and choose to be the beneficiaries of whatever greatness you have. You don't decide who you inspire. You will inspire anyone who chooses to be inspired by you. If you do not develop your personal greatness in the areas that God has called you to be great in, you will not only inspire no one, but you have committed the greatest sin, not seeking to live up to your full God-given potential. And then in that moment, I wrote a new leadershipology. Seek not to inspire others for how it makes you feel about yourself, but live an inspired life that will cause others to believe in God and in themselves. So that was just part of our conversation. And I'm sharing that with you because that's real father-son stuff that if I had not done my life God's way, with my frailties and my mistakes and my immaturities and my insecurities, and in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s, and trying to figure out marriage and trying to figure out life, if I hadn't sought in my own mind to please God, if my son or daughters came to me confused and I'm just living my life, the authority that God has given me to help them process questions, process their own life, maybe even process their own gender. Because why would anybody in today's world have gender dysphoria? Why would anybody wonder about what their identity is? Let me tell you, just the basic answer is this: because they had no one in their life telling them who God said that they were and modeling that for them to model their life after. That's why. That's why. And so what voices were they listening to? What their friends were saying. Some of you might remember this story. I shared it last year. I was at Lifetime Fitness, and I just decided I'm gonna go lay down in the pool for a second. So I'm laying in the shallow end of the pool. And these two young kids walk up, and about 13, maybe 12, 13, or three of them. And they're only about where Josh is, and I'm laying in the water, and they start talking to each other, and the one kid says, "Hey, when you see me, do you see a girl or a boy?" So the one kid goes, "Well, you look like a boy to me." So I lifted up out of the water. I said, hey, look at me. Now, I was not his dad, but in that moment I was. I said, I'm gonna tell you something. First of all, you don't need to ever ask that question again. Answer this question. Do you have a penis? He said, yes, sir, I do. I said, then you're a boy. I don't care what your mama tells you. I don't care what your daddy tells you. I don't care what the school tells you. I said, that's what you are. And I said, and don't be confused about it because you're handsome, you're awesome, you're gonna win in life. And I said, don't ever ask somebody when you look at me, what do you think I am? When they look at you, say, here's who I want you to know I am. I'm a child of God. Here's who I am. I'm a son of God. Here's who I am. And what's your name? And he told me his name. I said, you never have to ask that question again. Now I slide back down in the water.
Yeah, like this, so what we live in is this world that's dominated by that. And people can say there's a lot of reasons why that is. It's in our opinion, it's 100% because of the identity that's not coming from fathers, from father voices. You know, Paul said, you have many teachers, but few fathers. What we do is we put our kids in environments where they're being taught, but they're not being fathered. We ourselves, a lot of times, try to teach our kids stuff. We're not fathering our kids. When you father, this is the message that Paul's sending when he says that. He says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. When you're a father, you're imitating. You're worth imitating. You're worth being imitated by. Like in the Arabic world, which is where the Bible comes from, in the Middle East, Simon in the Bible, who became Peter, Simon was called Simon Bar-Jonah, and Bar means son of, right? So your identifier was the son of this guy. Osama bin Laden, his actual name was Osama bin Muhammad bin Awad bin Laden, which means Osama, son of Muhammad, son of Awad, son of Laden. So in the Arabic world, which is the world of the Bible, the culture that they had was your identity is attached to your father's identity. So I know who Osama is because I knew Muhammad. I know who Muhammad is because I knew Awad. I know Awad because I know Laden. And so we've lost that in culture. We don't, that's not often how we live in a country that is individualistic. Like find your own identity, figure out yourself. You're not your family. You're born into the family that you're born into for a reason. In our family growing up, our approach, like Pastor Keith's approach with us was there are different, unique differences in each one of us, but a craft is a craft, and here's how crafts are. Here's our family core values. Here's how we operate. When I introduce myself about 99% of the time, I'm like, hey, I'm Josh, I'm Keith Craft's son. Everyone's like, oh, okay, yeah, I know you. They don't know me. They know my dad. And that's what it should be. Is my identity is hopefully in a positive sense attached to him. But so many people never have the opportunity for that. Because men especially don't think that that's significant. They don't think that that's important. They don't
understand their authority.
And so
that
from the time we were young, like each one of us, you spoke that. It wasn't the same, you know, but you spoke that into each one of us personally.
Yeah, well, talk about that, Whitney, a little bit. Then I want you to share.
Yeah, whenever, you know, one of the things my dad used to ask us is, what do you contribute to this family? And I remember one time we were sitting at the table, and I don't remember how old I was, but he asked me that question, what do you contribute to this family? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's some things, but I don't really know. And he said, well, what do I call you? I said, you call me Giggles. And we all have nicknames. His is Champion, mine's Giggles, hers is Daisy. There's a lot more that each of us have, but those are the most consistent ones. Those are our names in his phone. And I said, you call me Giggles? And he said, yes, and I call you Giggles because you're a joy bringer. You bring joy into every atmosphere that you go into, and you bring joy to this family. Well, I never had to wonder or question again, what is it that I bring not just to my family, but to the world? That doesn't mean that that's the only thing, but that was one of the things that my dad spoke over me and identified in me, was that I was to bring joy to the world. And I identified and wore that so much that when I turned 16, I made Giggles my license plate. And I would drive all around Frisco with my Giggles license plate. I don't have it anymore. If you look for it, it's not me, because people knew it was me and I speed too fast and cut people off sometimes. And I don't want you to know it's me. I'm a great driver. But anyway, I identified with it so much that I wanted it on things that represented who I was. And so one of the biggest things that my dad did for me and did for us as kids was he knew the authority that he had in our lives to speak things over us that, yeah, maybe that was just a cute little nickname, but it meant so much more. And each nickname meant so much more of what we were called to bring into the earth. And I think sometimes as a parent, 'cause I know I'm a parent now, and I know even with my husband, sometimes you get these feelings of like, okay, well, like, should I say this? Or do I have this authority? Absolutely, you have the authority to speak those things over your children, to tell them who they are, to tell them what they bring to the world and to your family, and that they are a craft, or whatever your last name is, and say, this is how we act, this is who we are, and this is what we bring into every room, and you are unique, and you are special, and you are a joy bringer, or you are a champion, or you are, Josh.
Yes, I'm just keep it on.
Yes, and the thing that you guys did too was you encouraged more than you ever corrected. And we got a lot of correction. We believed in spankings in our family. I believe in spankings. But we got a lot of encouragement and a lot of speaking into who we are and who God made us to be and what we're called to bring. So do that for your children because...
So you said something in the first service that I thought was good. You said control, manipulation.
Oh, yeah. I said there's a lot of people that have said to me like, well, I just feel like your dad has brainwashed you. Like he's just like a manipulator.
Let's go, man.
And
I've been manipulated into greatness.
You're right. I was like, because I've been manipulated into being a great wife, having a great marriage, having a great family, having great relationships with my siblings, with my parents. And
control the heck out of me, man.
And I'm so glad that I was brainwashed, because now I get to stand on the shoulders of my parents and have a great life because of the brainwashing that took place.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful.
Yeah. Well, let me just, one quick thing.
Oh, that's good. I was just going to be funny.
Be funny. That's part of what you bring.
Be brainwashed, man. Allow your brain to be washed by the water of the word. That's what the Bible says.
Amen.
Let it happen, man. No one's that much of a free thinker. You're going to be manipulated by somebody. You might as well be manipulated by God.
That's what's so funny.
These
people, and I want Keela to address this in just a minute, but these people who are shouting and screaming, this one legislator somewhere, I think it was like Pennsylvania, we love transgender, we love transgender, and it's like going crazy. It's like, we love, it's like, hey. It's like, we love everybody, but we're not going to celebrate mental illness. I mean, for real. We're not going to celebrate the fact that you didn't know, that your daddy didn't tell you who you were. So now you're going to tell the world who you are. Yeah. And it's not in alignment with what the Word of God says.
Because that's the whole
about
thing,
you.
right? Is you have to go figure out your own identity now.
Well, and what a lonely place to be as a child, that no one's helping you or telling you this is who God made you to be or this is who you are. You just have to figure it out. What do you feel? It's like, okay, I don't know. It's going to take me forever to figure out what it is that I feel, what it is that I identify with, instead of just as a father and as a parent saying, this is who God made you to be. This is who you are. This is what you're going to do. This is what I wouldn't be in worship. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. None of us would be in ministry. But if my dad hadn't said and told me my whole life, you're a worship leader. You're a worshiper. You're not only are you a great worshiper of loving and worshiping God, but you're going to lead nations. You're going to lead thousands into worship. I'm like 7. Okay, I don't even know what that means. But I didn't have to question even what I wanted to do with my life, because, and sure, could that be brainwashing? Yeah, but I'm so glad, because I didn't have to go figure it out.
This isn't about what's happening in culture, but what's happening in culture, you understand, is a reflection of what we haven't, I don't think it's maybe what we haven't done, but also what we have the opportunity to do. Like, people have to see a better way. You can have an identity in Christ. You can be great.
Yes.
You can experience purpose. You can have a meaningful existence, and it starts in our homes. It doesn't start at school. A lot of people want to get mad at the school. No, it starts in our homes. It starts with how we're loving our kids, how we're investing in them, how we're speaking that greatness into them. And then what they realize is that they bring that everywhere they go. And me and Whitney and Keela, I think one of the differences, I have never needed external validation. And it's not because I'm that special. It's not because I'm some kind of hyper introvert that doesn't care about what people think. I've never needed external validation because I've had parents in my life who taught me who I was in God, not just who I was in them. So how my friends felt, how my teachers felt, how this person felt didn't matter as much, because when I went home, I was a champion. When I went home, I was great. When I went home, you're gonna have a positive attitude. When I went home, it was like, you're this and you're that and you're so wonderful. And so then it helped me as I got older to develop the confidence to bring that. Well, what's happening in culture? People are going places needing some kind of validation. I need you to tell me who I am, because I don't know who I am, because I'm coming from a place where no one told me that.
Okay, so I want to just give you a tip, men, fathers. So I'm gonna do this real quick, but so I'm just look around here. So Mike has been with me 20 plus years. Mike, give me one characteristic that you see in Connor, your son. Just one characteristic. You see him as loyal. Okay. Now here's what happens. So fathers, I really want you to really lean into this and hear what I'm saying. It's very powerful. Therefore, it can be very profound in your family. Whatever you see in your child, you're going to see it before they know it's there. So one of the most powerful things you can do is, if you see loyalty, is to begin to say to Connor, you're loyal. Now here's what that means. Here's what I see in you. It's such a great quality, and here's why it's a great quality. He's not aspirationally speaking that over him. I hope you'll be a loyal person. No, he sees loyalty into him, and then he begins to speak that into him, and for the rest of Connor's life, he sees himself as a loyal person. He gets married, and a woman comes across his path and says, I want you. And the first thought is not, I want you too, with his luster, but his first filter is, I'm loyal, therefore, here's what I must do, and here's what I won't do. This is what's so powerful. So men, I want you to get this. You say, I have that much authority? Yes. So here's the insight that I want you to get that will give you foresight into your future and into your child's future. When I would look at Whitney and I would say, Whitney, what do I call you? I call you Giggles. Why do I call you? Because you bring joy to our family. Here's the key. Whatever you see in your child that they do for you, that they cause a feeling of loyalty, they cause a feeling of joy. How you bring that out is you speak that, and what happens is they truly begin to see themselves that way. And there's a lot of you that are sitting in this room, you never had this. You never had a father voice, not just an earthly father, but you never had a father voice that saw something in you that's a dominant, incredible, wonderful, unstoppable part of you that you're to bring to the world, but you struggle with your insecurity and not even knowing that that's the power that you have. When a father is able to see something in their child, that their child makes them feel a certain way, in the most positive sense, that their child is able to shift a conversation, that their child has a strength or a gift that they bring to the family, and the father lets that be known, that child, the identity of that child, the attitude of that child, the behaviors of that child, and watch this, the significance of that child will be permanently embedded so that heretofore they'll give that everywhere they go. 100%.
Yeah, and I think even in our family,
yeah,
to this day, when we have significant disagreements between the three of us, my dad will say, like, I'll be saying, here's the dynamic me and Whitney are having, whatever. And my dad will say, hey, that's not what you're saying. That's not who Whitney is. Let me tell you who Whitney is. And him and my mom have maintained that between us. And now when we talk to each other, it's like, well, I know that's not who you are. So let's talk about that. Not because I know Whitney and Keela pretty well, I hope, I feel like. But not just because there's this identity that they have cultivated that they say, here's who I am, but because we've had a family where where it's like, no, this is what Keela brings. No, this is what Whitney brings. Like, Whitney would sit up here and tell you, like, there's been so many conversations in my personal life where Pastor Keith and Sheila have gone, you need to let Whitney be this in your life, because Whitney will help you if you let her be that in your life, because that's who she is. That's the power that you have as a parent. That's the power you have as a leader in your family to help even everyone around your kids, their siblings included, understand that this is the role that this person's going to play in our family, because I'm the one that helped them realize that and understand that.
So one last thing, and then I want you to respond, because there's a real to this. This is all real, but there's a real to this that again is very deep, and at the same time you still have to make a choice. But I'm saying that to say that how do you nurture that in your family? Like, how do you get your kids seeing the best in each other? This is how you do it. Whether you're at a family, for us, it was a lot of times on Monday nights, but we would have a family gathering. But sometimes this was over a meal, but this happened on a regular basis. So I would say, Keela, say something good about Josh that you really see in Josh. Well, they may have just had a fight. They may be in turmoil. But my question is, here, where's the family? And would you guys agree that we did that on a regular basis? Like Whitney point out something good in Keela. Well, the last thing she wanted to do is say something nice about Keela.
We still do that.
Because Keela had been mean to her, meetings. Or whatever, or vice versa, or whatever. But here's what I want you to say. How do we get to a place where we can help nurture this in our children? You gather together, and it became what we call an honor circle in our family. And it happens at Christmas, it happens on birthdays, it happens at different times, but also just on a regular basis to come back to, like, they know not just what the difficulties are with each other, but they know what the good is in each other, because we help them navigate that. And then provided them opportunities to go, hey, so don't just say something nice about your brother or sister. No, that's not it. It's like, what's something in them that you really see? And then one of your children hears something like, oh, you see that in me? And it develops this healthy family culture. That's part of the way it works. Would y'all agree with that? I mean, that's part of how it was nurtured. But anyway, share a little bit of your experience, because again, we never want to come across like our family's perfect. It's far from perfect. It's continually working out stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, well, and I think too, like, for those of you that are in your 30s and younger, or maybe you're a little bit older than that, but maybe you don't have kids and you're thinking, maybe I shouldn't because this all sounds like a lot of work. The truth is, it is, and more than ever in our world, especially in America, people aren't getting married and they aren't having kids. And a lot of Christians are doing this because they feel like, well, I don't want to bring my kids up in a world like this. And I just have to tell you, who else is going to change the world if we don't raise up children in God's ways and change the world? You're going to let other things take over. You're going to let the wrong voices be the majority. And, you know, I know for me, last service, I got emotional because when Josh and my dad were talking back and forth, I had like this memory come up of like something that had happened in my life. And, you know, growing up, I don't know if y'all can perceive this about me, but like I have a tendency, like I really am a lot like my dad. I've always liked ways that he is. Like I guess, I don't know, I'm like an A-type personality, more of like a hardcore girl, you know? Like I told my parents, I was like, I want a warrior knife on Mother's Day. That's what I would have wanted, you know? And like when we were growing up, I
want to give you that too.
Thanks. I always took like my brother's hand-me-down clothes. I would see my dad and my brother outside not wearing shirts. I'm like, I'm not wearing a shirt because like, why do I have to?
Yeah, you knocked my teeth out of my mouth.
Yeah, I punched your teeth out. We would like play football and I would like clothesline him. Like I was like, you know, I'm like an alpha. Like I like that, you know? And so for me...
Are there any other women like that here? Let me just see. I just want to, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, there's like two ways you go when you're like an alpha woman. I feel like if I get really upset, I'm either going to hurt you or I'm going to cry. And I will be angry crying, but I might be crying. You know, it's a weird thing that happens. Anyways, so
Growing up, I've always had friends that are gay or that people that struggle with that, and just in Christian schools and college and stuff like that, because it's all around us, right? And I think for me, like, I've always been drawn to them because, and a lot of my friends, they say things like, I was just born this way. Like, I can't help the way that I'm wired. And on a level, I understand that because I am wired a lot like my dad. I do have, if you've ever taken like the energy tests or whatever, like I have like more masculine energy than feminine energy. So I have to work on having more feminine energy because it's important. But I just naturally like am drawn to like action movies and like that type of stuff. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like, that's what I like,
baby.
And so I think
Fired
for
me
me,
up,
like,
man.
I've always understood, like, okay, I have a different wiring, but there was always this, identity that was spoken into me. And then when I was around like 12, I actually was molested. And I remember, this was what I got emotional about last service, because I had this memory come up of where I was sitting in my room and I was just crying. And I had these thoughts going through my head, like saying, God doesn't love you. Your dad doesn't love you. That person that did that to you actually loves you more than them. And I as soon as that last thought happened, I was like, that is a lie from the devil. Like, what? Like, but you have to like understand, these are the types of thoughts that people hear over and over. They don't love you. You're not worth it. And they start to believe them. They start to agree with those thoughts. And I remember having to wrestle thoughts like that, like, my dad doesn't love me, God doesn't love me. And those two things were really umbilically connected for me. And also, I think the enemy knows that about us. So if he's always trying to mess with your identity. He did it with Adam and Eve from the beginning of time. He wanted them to see that they weren't as important, and God was trying to withhold something from them. So go figure it out for yourself. Well, what they didn't realize in that moment is that God was trying to protect them, right? Because he wanted to be close to them, but he still wanted them to have free choice. What the enemy was trying to show them was where they lacked even more. God was trying to cover them, protect them, and he was trying to expose God, but it exposed them. So then they run around naked. God says, who told you you're naked? I never said you were naked. And like, you're free to be who I've created you to be. It's all symbolic and metaphorical, right? We can look at that in today's world. These people feel like they're in the wrong body. These people feel like they're not living the life they should be living. And it all stems from the fact that they've agreed with a voice that's not a voice of God.
Right.
And the truth is, like, I have compassion for it, but you don't have to affirm dysfunction to have compassion for it. And I've always really connected with some of these people because I know the thoughts that I've had in that season that I was in, where I was trying to figure out what was happening in my life, what happened to me. Like, my family doesn't understand what I'm going through. They're asking me questions. I don't even understand how to like articulate what I'm feeling. I just knew it was really dark, and I had so many thoughts of like, the world would be better without me. They would be better without me. Like, my life doesn't matter. Just from something like that, that you can go through, that there's so many things that happen to people in the world, but what helps you process it is if you do have a good father, you do have good parents, and you always, even if you don't have that, have a good father that can lead you through things. And I remember I was 18. And I had been like dealing with this since I was 12. I didn't even tell my parents for 4 years because I was like, and that's how alone I was and isolated, because I was so ashamed and I didn't understand how it happened and I thought it was my fault. And then finally I tell them 4 years after, and then when I'm 18, I'm like, I get tempted because I have this boyfriend, and I get tempted and I'm like, oh my word, that wasn't my choice. And I had this whole realization of like, okay, I realized the difference between temptation and what had happened to me. And so I came to my parents and we had this conversation. They ended up having me go to a Christian counselor. And she asked me to do all this stuff. And every time she would say, okay, well, I want you to go do this, I was like, oh, I've already done that. Like, God had led me to do every single thing that she had been taught to teach me to do. And so I was like in a good place at that point. But it was like just having that moment of realizing God equipped me with everything that he could have equipped a professional with to help me. Because I sought him, and I had parents that loved me, and it pushed me more into the presence of God. And so, I think sometimes people can get offended, and in general, I think people are so sensitive in today's world when you say mental illness or anything like that, because it's like almost like you're putting someone down. Like, I just want to read this to you because this is from a LGBTQIA+, which those are the letters. I know you don't know them.
I have no idea.
But they keep adding colors and letters, and I want to explain something to you because it goes with it. It corresponds. 50% of LGBTQ youth seriously tried to attempt suicide in the past year. Let me scroll down to this one. 15% of them actually attempted and were successful in this last year. 75% of LGBTQ youth reported having anxiety. 60% of LGBTQ youth have depression. So, and it goes on and on. It just keeps going. And 82% of people that have transgender surgeries regret it. There is something, the reason why we talk about this is not because we hate different types of people.
Absolutely.
We don't hate different types of political groups or different types of sexual groups or people that want to call themselves a different gender because they don't know that sex and gender are synonyms, you know? I truly feel like you have to understand what's happening behind the curtain. The enemy has been after your identity since the beginning. He just has. And if he can get the dad to not step up in front of Eve, which in that moment, it represents a father, and say, I already know what God spoke to me because God told Adam. He didn't tell Eve. So when the man stands up and he says, no, you know what? God already told us this. Sorry, we're not interested. That wouldn't have even happened. They wouldn't have felt exposed. They wouldn't have lost their identity. And I'm not saying that to just bash on a man. What I'm saying is you carry a pivotal role in this world and in the family. And that is what's lacking in America. People want to hate on a strong man, and we're seeing what it looks like when they step back. We need strong men. We need strong fathers. Like, we are all up here the product of a strong father that has loved us, that's not been perfect, pretty freaking close, because it's almost just unattainable for me to think about how to be as good as him. But like, he's been consistent, and that's what makes it feel so unattainable, because people can't be consistent. If you just choose to wake up every day and be who God's called you to be, this nation will change, your family will change, like the kingdom of God will change this earth for good. And I just feel like even for someone like me, who obviously I struggle with different things growing up and different battles than them, we all have different battles in this room. I remember this counselor, she asked me, she said, have you ever struggled with your sexual identity? And I said, no, what do you mean by that? And she kind of explained what she was talking about. She said 98.9% of people who have been sexually abused struggle with their sexual identity for the rest of their life. And I was like, well, I guess I'm in the 1%, if that's the right math. I don't know. Like 2, I don't know. You don't have to struggle with what other people struggle with when you have the presence of God and the Holy Spirit in your life. You just don't. And so I want to encourage you, because this could seem, if you let your emotions block you, this could seem like this is a message against people, but this is a message for people. This is how we win. This is how we move forward. This is how you heal. This is how you're able to go, oh, this is who God created me to be, and learn who that is and walk in that, and not have to think about what everyone else thinks about you, or if you're affirmed by a certain group, or if you're supported by this group, or go find your safe space. Like, we don't need any of that. We just need to understand who we are, walk in it, and be that person. And so much of that is umbilically connected to fathers. It just is. So be that man. Even if you aren't a father yet, practice it. Be the father that can listen to our Father and apply it, because one day when you are one, you're gonna win a lot faster, right? Don't just look at what your dad did and go, I'm not gonna be like that, because the people that do that end up being worse, because you get so focused on what he wasn't that you become worse than that. Focus on who you wanna be. That's what I saw my dad do. He focused on, we never heard negative things about our grandparents. We only heard what they did right, and he's the beneficiary of that, and we're the beneficiary of that. I see the same thing with my husband. He grew up without a dad. Since he was 12, he's always talked about, I want to be a great father, and he's worked on that. And it's like, today I'm so grateful for that, because like my boys, they have a great father, and he doesn't have father issues, and it's so wonderful, because his father was really abusive. And a lot of you don't know his story, but he's so drawn to my dad because he recognizes what a great father looks like. Don't just be in this house and look at our family and think it's all about us, or it's all about Keith, or it's all about whatever. Like, we're just trying to help, and we're just trying to show you, like, this is working and this works. And so if there's a father, this is a spiritual voice for you, receive from that, because you can only benefit from it. If it doesn't work for you, go find somewhere where it can work for you. But we're just like literally up here to go, hey, this is what has helped us, this is what's working for us, and this is what the Bible says, and you can actually win. And that's why they're joking about saying, I'll be manipulated into winning, I'll be coerced into winning, you know, because that's what we want for everybody. We don't want anyone to feel separated or put on a pedestal, or either way or the other. It's just, this is what it is, and like, let us help, you know?
Yeah. And ultimately this is, yeah. And ultimately this is You know, there's a lot of single moms, and there's a lot of women out there that are like, man, like it would be nice to have that. Like, this is why our church exists. This is why getting involved in small groups matters. That's why bringing your kids to youth matters. Because we have a fathering culture at Elevate Life. I can't speak for every other church. I'm sure there's a lot of churches that do very similar things. But here we have a fathering culture. We have a culture where there's men that are worth imitating here. There's men that are on that journey. So if you're by yourself with your kids, it's not probably your choice that you're a single mom. But don't isolate. Like, become a part of a tribe. And there's something that you posted yesterday. I know we're just about done, but there's something that
we can go ahead and
that my
stand.
dad posted yesterday that I want to give some practical steps, because it's like all this has been very great and been philosophical. But you posted 10 things your dad did right.
Yeah.
And the top 3 things that Pastor Keith said there are things that I want to encourage you to write down. So the question to me is, how do we help our kids develop this identity? How do we help our kids become who God's called them to be? How do we build the world of tomorrow that way? There's a post that Pastor Keith did, so I'll give you the top 3. But these are the 3 things that any one of us can do right now. Number 1, believe in yourself, because it will help your kids to believe in themselves. It's the first and most important thing you can do, is have a high self-esteem so that your children can have a high self-esteem. The second thing, overcome your fears so that you can help your children overcome their fears. Then the third thing is develop a philosophy of life so you can help your children develop a philosophy of life. Those aren't just 3 things that our grandfather did right. Those are 3 things that our dad did right. And those are 3 practical ways right now that start with you and I, that we can develop a strong identity in and of ourselves and help our kids do the same thing.
Very good. Thank you, son. Well, thank y'all for being here today. And I know we've taken a little bit of time, but there's just sometimes we need to take some time, y'all. And this is one of those days, just in honor of all the fathers here. And I hope you're encouraged. I hope you know that no matter what you've done in the past, it doesn't matter. It's never too late to be what you could have always been. Speak what you see over your children to them. Don't just talk to other people about them. It's not about, hey, my son's a great athlete. I'm not talking about that. Hey, my daughter's pretty. I'm not talking about that. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is attributes and characteristics that they have that you identify as a father. And as you speak those things out, your child will bring that part of the glory of God to the world. And it'll be very, very powerful. So I hope you enjoyed today. And just great to get to share our family with you a little bit.